One could almost say at first glance, besides the thousands of casualties, the Battle of Antietam had not changed a thing. But this battle would have far-reaching implications. If it was not the decisive victory that the Lincoln administration wanted, it would have to do. On September 22, 1862, Abraham Lincoln announced that the Emancipation Proclamation would take effect on January 1st of 1863. This decision would be condemned in the South and endlessly debated in the North. Even today, scholars argue the merits of Lincoln's move. But it did change how the war was fought. The old Union was no longer to be saved. A new one would have to be built from the ashes of the Old South. It was also the first step in recruiting thousands of black soldiers into the Union ranks. And as the armies of Lincoln conquered the Confederacy in the 2.5 years to follow, they would liberate millions of slaves, thereby taking that great manpower advantage away from the South and placing it in Union hands. Although it would take more than a century for the freed men and women to achieve the rights they thought the proclamation granted them, it was the first and most important step. And the Battle of Antietam made that step possible. Despite the passage of time, the Antietam battlefield and the village of Sharpsburg look very much like they did in 1862. Mr. Miller's cornfield is still here, and corn is still planted in it almost every year. After the war, the congregation of the Dunkard Church declined. Nature would destroy what man could not when a violent windstorm flattened the humble church in 1921. It was rebuilt in 1961 using much of the original materials. Once the battle was over, local farmers picked up their tools and got back to work. The bloody lane, cleared of its carnage, reverted back to its original purpose, as these farmers once again used it to drive their wagons down to the Antietam Creek. The Rohrbach Bridge, now called Burnside's Bridge for the Union general whose men fought so bitterly for it, also still remains today. This silent witness to so much carnage stands guard over the battlefield, ready to ferry its visitors across the Antietam Creek. A new unfortunate landmark was added after the battle. Many of the Union dead found their final resting place on this spot, and in 1878 it became Antietam National Cemetery. No, the battlefield hasn't changed much over the years. Because of its rural location, it has been safe from the urban sprawl that has consumed so many of its sister battlefields. Preserved as a battlefield park by the military in 1890, Antietam was turned over to the National Park Service in 1933, and it now sees invaders of a different sort, as thousands of visitors walk these fields and tramp these roads every year. Stone and bronze monuments of every kind now occupy the landscape to mark the spot where brave men fought and fell. And without speaking a word, all of these icons tell the epic story of the Battle of Antietam and how it changed American history. They tell it over and over and over again. And all one has to do to hear this story is come to this quiet place in western Maryland and listen.